The planet Velora had once been a bright jewel in the galaxy. Its cities gleamed under two suns and the forests stretched like green oceans. But now the world was broken. A massive storm had swept across the main settlement, tearing buildings from their foundations and scattering debris into the air. The rivers were full of mud and fallen trees, and the crops that had once fed thousands were crushed. Silence hung over the city like a heavy shadow. The alien princess Ilara floated above the ruined streets in her observation ship. She had traveled far from her home planet to see the colony for herself. Ilara was small for a royal, with soft lavender skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. She wore flowing robes of blue and silver, moving with grace even as she hovered over the devastation. But beneath her calm exterior, her heart ached. From the sky she saw them, alien families walking through the rubble. Some carried what little food they could salvage. Others searched for loved ones, calling names into the wind. The children were quiet except for one. The child's cry reached Ilara first, a sharp, keening sound that broke through the distant hum of emergency drones. It was a sound full of fear and pain, and it seemed to cling to the ruins. The girl or boy, Ilara could not tell from above, was small, barely 7 or 8, and alone. Every time someone tried to comfort the child, the weeping only grew louder. Ilara's hands tightened around the railing of her observation deck. She had studied suffering in books and reports, but nothing prepared her for this. The child's sorrow felt alive, a thing that pulled at the heart, and she knew without thinking that she had to help. She did not move immediately. From her vantage point, she watched the adults of the colony. They were doing their best, but panic made them clumsy. Every attempt to calm the child only seemed to make the sobbing worse. Some tried to speak softly. Some tried to pick the child up, and some even offered small toys, but nothing worked. The child's fear was too deep, too real. Then, a new figure appeared. The human soldier arrived in a small transport ship that landed carefully on one of the broken streets. He stepped out wearing a uniform unlike anything Ilara had seen. Light armor, practical boots, and a helmet tucked under one arm. His face was square, kind, and weathered just enough to suggest experience. But there was something about his posture, the way he moved through the debris, that was different from the aliens. He did not look afraid. Ilara's curiosity piqued. She had read reports of humans, of course. They were known in the galaxy for their bravery, for the strange ability to adapt and survive in impossible situations. But she had never seen one in action. And now, here was one walking straight toward the crying child. The child's cries rose again as the human approached. The adult stepped back, unsure if the human was friend or foe. But he did not flinch or hesitate. Kneeling gently in front of the child, he lowered himself to their level. The human did not speak the alien language perfectly, but his voice was soft and calm. He made slow gestures with his hands, pointing at the sky, pointing at himself, then pointing at the child. There was no rush, no panic, just patience. For a moment, nothing happened. The child continued to cry, shaking and small arms flailing. Then slowly the child's eyes shifted to the humans. There was curiosity there, a tiny spark breaking through the wall of fear. The human smiled, a small warm gesture that seemed to glow even under the gray skies. He reached out a hand, not forcing, just offering. The child hesitated, then took it. And something remarkable happened. The crying lessened. Ilara gasped quietly. She had never seen this before. The aliens were capable of compassion, of course, but the human seemed to bring comfort in a way that went beyond words. The princess leaned closer to the viewport. The human spoke a few words softly, and the child tilted their head, listening. Then the smallest of smiles appeared, barely noticeable but real. The child's fingers tightened around the human's hand as if holding onto something solid in a world of chaos. For the first time since the storm, Ilara saw hope. The human gently lifted the child into his arms. The adults nearby looked unsure, but they did not interfere. He carried the child to a safer place, a small building that had survived the storm with only minor damage. Inside, the child's sobs quieted further. The human knelt, still holding the child, and began to hum a low, comforting tune. Ilara could hardly believe her eyes. She had studied human culture from afar, but she had never expected such simple yet profound skill in comforting another being. It was as if the human carried light inside him, and it shone out without effort. Hours passed. The human helped organize food for the survivors, guided aliens to safe shelters, and calmed frightened children. He moved among them as if he belonged, not a stranger, not a soldier, just a presence of strength and reassurance. The child followed him everywhere, no longer crying but staying close as if afraid to lose the warmth that had reached them first. Ilara watched, fascinated. She had always known humans were extraordinary in war and survival. But here was a different kind of power, the power to heal, to comfort, and to inspire trust. At sunset, the storm clouds broke, letting light spill across the broken streets. The alien princess finally left her observation post and landed her small ship nearby. She stepped out, careful not to frighten the humans or aliens. Her long robes brushed the ground as she walked toward the human and the child. The human looked up, a little surprised, but he smiled politely. "Princess Ilara?" he asked, guessing her identity from the ships and insignia. "Yes," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, calm, and full of authority. "I came to observe, and perhaps to learn." The child clung to the human's side, peeking at the princess with wide eyes. For the first time, Ilara saw something in the human that made her heart skip. A quiet confidence, a patience that seemed endless, and a compassion that no alien, not even a royal observer, had fully mastered. "You saved the child," she said simply. The human shrugged. "I just did what I could. They needed someone to stay calm. Sometimes that's all it takes." Ilara's eyes widened slightly. Humans, and they do not just fight. They comfort. They protect. Even when it is not expected. The human nodded, brushing a bit of dust from his uniform. "We do what must be done. Sometimes that means using hands, sometimes words, sometimes just being there." The princess looked at the child, now sitting quietly and holding the human's hand, a small smile on their face. She felt a stirring of something new, curiosity, admiration, maybe even awe. For the rest of the evening, Ilara watched the human work. He helped repair a small water system, lifted debris to clear a path, and spoke softly to frighten children and adults alike. Every action was simple, but in its simplicity there was power. The colony began to feel safe again, slowly, like a heartbeat returning after a long illness. When night fell, the child finally yawned and curled up next to the human for warmth, their tiny head resting against his chest. The princess watched from the doorway unseen and wondered. She had come to study the colony, to see its failures and triumphs. But she had not expected to see a human in action, and she had certainly not expected to feel the quiet pull of hope that seemed to radiate from him. Ilara realized then that humans were extraordinary, not only in strength or skill but in something deeper. The child's trust, the colony's slowly returning calm, and the strange light in the human's eyes told her that humans had a power unlike any other in the galaxy. And in that moment, the princess made a silent promise. She would follow this human, observe him closely, and learn, not only for the colony but for herself, for something about him was unlike anything she had ever known. Above them, the stars began to shine, and for the first time in days, Velora felt less like a broken world and more like a place where hope could grow. The sun rose over the ruined colony of Velora, spilling soft light across cracked streets and broken buildings. Smoke from fires that had burned through the night curled into the sky. Yet even in the disaster, there was movement, hope stirring among the survivors. The child who had wept endlessly the day before now walked beside the human soldier, holding his hand tightly. The human's name was Captain Marcus, though most of the aliens could not pronounce it properly. To the child, he was simply friend. And to the Princess Ilara, Marcus had become far more than a visitor. He was a living example of what humans could do, a lesson that no book or report could ever teach. Ilara moved among the ruins cautiously. She wanted to observe, not interfere, for now. She had noticed how humans operated differently from her people. They seemed calm in chaos, and yet, when danger came, they acted quickly and decisively. Marcus did not shout orders or demand respect. He earned it by doing. The morning began with small but crucial tasks. Marcus organized the surviving adults to rebuild a water purification system that had been destroyed in the storm. He did not just give instructions. He worked alongside them, lifting broken panels, connecting pipes, and testing pumps. He showed the aliens how to use simple tools, gestures, and gestures again, demonstrating each action slowly. The adults followed, learning not only the method but the quiet courage it took to keep moving even when exhaustion weighed them down. The child ran ahead, pointing at a small kitten trapped in debris. Marcus stopped immediately, kneeling to free it. He handed the kitten gently to the child, who laughed, a sound Ilara had never heard before from them. It was pure, simple, and it filled the air with warmth. "See?" Marcus said softly, smiling. "Sometimes saving little things matters as much as big ones." Ilara watched the exchange. Humans, she thought, found importance in things others might ignore. This small act of care had calmed the child more than hours of talking could. Humans had a strange wisdom, a way of turning kindness into courage. By mid-morning, the princess decided to speak to Marcus. She approached slowly, mindful of the child, who now clung to his side like a shadow. "Captain Marcus," she said, her voice calm, but carrying authority. "You have a gift. I have watched humans before, studied reports, but this is something I did not expect." Marcus looked up and nodded. "Princess Ilara, I am just trying to help. The child, they needed someone steady. I am lucky I could be here." "Luck?" Ilara echoed. "No, this is more than luck. You act with focus. You inspire confidence without demanding it. Your presence alone brings hope." Marcus shrugged, slightly embarrassed by the praise. "I just know what it's like to be scared and alone. Sometimes you just need someone to stay near, to show that it will be okay." Ilara's eyes lingered on the child. The small being now walked confidently beside Marcus, helping hand with gestures, laughing as they retrieved small supplies. Something shifted in Ilara's mind. She had observed leaders and warriors before, yet she had never seen leadership so quiet, and yet so strong. Humans were extraordinary. As the day passed, small tasks built trust and cooperation. Marcus directed groups to clear debris and salvage usable materials. He taught the aliens how to repair basic structures quickly, and when a small fire broke out in one building, he calmly guided everyone to safety before extinguishing it himself. No alien had reacted so quickly or efficiently, and Ilara noticed how Marcus's presence kept panic at bay. By late afternoon, the survivors had formed small teams, working together under Marcus's guidance. They repaired a part of the water system, rebuilt a temporary shelter, and even gathered food from ruined storage areas. The child ran between teams, delivering small items and laughing freely, a stark contrast to the frightened, weeping figure from the day before. Ilara stepped closer to Marcus when a new challenge appeared. One of the older buildings had a collapsed roof, and a group of aliens was trapped inside. Smoke and dust rose from the ruins. The child froze at the edge, clutching Marcus's leg. "Stay close," Marcus whispered. He moved quickly, carefully, checking for weak points and finding safe paths. He instructed two aliens to support the roof while he slid beneath the debris. He reached the trapped aliens, helping them crawl out one by one. Ilara watched, amazed. Humans were strong, yes, but strength alone did not explain this. It was calmness, intelligence, and compassion working together. He calculated each move, risked himself where needed, and yet remained gentle and careful. When the last trapped alien stepped out, Marcus emerged, brushing dust from his uniform. The child hugged him tightly, whispering something that Ilara could not hear, but that brought a rare smile to the human's face. "See?" Marcus said quietly, crouching to the child's level. "Everything's going to be okay now, you're safe." The princess felt something stir within her chest, a mixture of awe, respect, and a strange curiosity. Humans, she realized, had a courage that was not just physical. They had bravery in their hearts, and they used it to protect others, even when no one asked. As evening came, the survivors gathered around a small fire. Marcus sat among them, speaking softly, explaining simple ways to keep the shelters strong and the water clean. The aliens listened, sometimes skeptical, sometimes amazed. The child leaned against him, nodding along. Ilara approached again, her long robes brushing the ground. She had not spoken much since arriving, but now she spoke plainly. "You are different from the humans I have read about," she said. They are described as fighters, explorers, but not healers in this way. You bring courage not only through action but through calm, through presence. It is remarkable. Marcus smiled, shaking his head. I don't know if that's special. I just do what I would want someone to do for me if I were scared. If it works, then it works. That's enough. The princess shook her head. No, it is more than enough. You have taught more than you know. You have shown leadership without command, courage without arrogance, and care without expectation. These are lessons that even the wisest of my people could learn from. Marcus looked down at the child who was now playing quietly with some recovered supplies. The child, they are what keeps me moving. Every person, every little life matters. Maybe that's why humans survive so well. We don't give up on each other. Ilara studied him, realizing that humans were not only strong and clever but also deeply connected to one another in a way that could change the galaxy. She had spent her life learning rules, observing protocol, and maintaining order. Yet, this human showed her that courage and care could flow from simplicity. Night settled over Velora, cooling the broken city. Marcus helped the aliens build small fires for warmth and light. The child, finally calm, curled up next to him for the night. Ilara watched from a distance, feeling a strange mix of admiration and wonder. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring more challenges. The colony still had many dangers: collapsed buildings, food shortages, and perhaps more storms. But she also knew that as long as humans were present, hope would remain. Humans did not merely survive. They inspired others to survive with them. And as she looked at Marcus kneeling beside the sleeping child, she understood that she was witnessing something rare. Humans, she realized, had a power unlike any other species she had known. Not power to conquer, not power to destroy, but power to heal, to teach, and to bring hope in the darkest times. For the first time, Ilara wondered if humans were not just remarkable for their actions, but for what they carried inside. A quiet light that could guide even the most broken of worlds back to life. And on that night, under 2 distant moons, the child slept peacefully, holding the human's hand. The princess stood nearby, silent, and watched a story of courage, care, and hope unfold before her eyes. Velora was still a broken planet, but with humans among them, it felt alive again. The morning light on Velora was pale and trembling through the dust-filled air. The storm had passed, but the planet was far from safe. Cracked streets, broken buildings, and scattered debris still made life dangerous. Many survivors were still weak, frightened, or injured. Even as small repairs continued, a sense of unease spread quietly through the colony. Princess Ilara watched from a high ridge near the edge of the settlement. Her eyes scanned the horizon. She noticed the colony's water supply was still unstable, and some makeshift shelters leaned dangerously. But her gaze kept returning to the human soldier, Captain Marcus, who moved among the survivors as if he belonged here completely. Marcus had become a steady presence in the colony. The child, once crying endlessly, now walked beside him, holding his hand with confidence. The child's laughter rang through the broken streets, a tiny but powerful signal of hope. Marcus had begun teaching the aliens more advanced ways to protect themselves. He demonstrated how to reinforce walls with debris, how to purify water using simple chemical methods, and how to safely remove fallen objects without risk. He did not just instruct, he worked alongside them, setting an example of courage, care, and calmness. But then, a new danger appeared. A series of loud crashes echoed through the ruins, followed by shouts from the outskirts. A massive group of Velora's native predators had been driven toward the colony by the storm. They were creatures the aliens knew well, large, fast, and deadly, but never in such numbers. Panic spread immediately. Children screamed, animals scattered, and adults froze in confusion. The child clung tightly to Marcus's leg, terrified. Marcus immediately acted. He did not shout, panic, or hesitate. Instead, he scanned the approaching threat, calculating how to protect the colony and its people. "Stay behind me," he whispered to the child, scooping them up into his arms. "We'll be okay. Just stay close." Princess Ilara followed, landing softly behind Marcus. She observed him calmly issue instructions to the alien adults. "Block the south path with debris," he said, pointing to the open streets. "Guide the children to the shelters on the east side. Use rocks and wood as barriers. Stay low. The aliens obeyed quickly, inspired by the calm authority of a human. They had never seen someone remain composed in the face of such danger. Even Princess Ilara felt a quiet awe. Humans, she realized, carried a strength of mind and heart that transcended physical ability. The predators drew closer. Marcus moved carefully among the survivors, helping those who were injured or afraid. He picked up heavy beams to block entrances, lifted small children out of harm's way, and guided elders to safe locations. Every motion was precise, thoughtful, and full of care. The child in his arms stared at the approaching predators, eyes wide with fear. Marcus leaned closer, speaking softly. "We are going to be okay. I will keep you safe. Just trust me." The words, combined with his steady presence, seemed to work magic. The child's small body relaxed slightly. Ilara could hardly believe her eyes. The human's ability to combine bravery, intelligence, and empathy was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Marcus did not rush into danger recklessly. He did not merely issue orders. He moved with purpose, guiding others while protecting those who could not protect themselves. One of the larger predators lunged toward the outer barrier. Marcus grabbed a thick beam and used it to redirect the creature away from the children. He did not strike to kill, but to control, to guide. The aliens had never seen such skill, such careful calculation. "Keep moving," Marcus shouted. "This way, faster, but stay calm." His voice carried authority, without fear, without anger, only focus. The child clung tightly, glancing at Princess Ilara. She stepped closer, unsure if she should intervene. But Marcus had the situation firmly in hand. With calm gestures, he instructed the aliens to work as a team. Together, they redirected the predators toward open ground, where the creatures could not reach the children or the shelters. Hours passed in tense effort. Marcus continued guiding, lifting, redirecting, and supporting. The child watched in amazement as their protector moved effortlessly among adults and predators alike. When the last predator was finally driven away, the child's small arms wrapped around Marcus's neck in relief. Ilara approached cautiously, her expression a mix of admiration and concern. "Captain Marcus, that was incredible," she said softly. "You saved them all. You saved the child, the colony, and the survivors. I have never seen anyone act like that." Marcus shook his head, brushing dust from his uniform. "It's not just me. The colony helped. Everyone worked together. I just showed them a way to stay calm and act. That's all." But Ilara knew it was far more than that. Humans had a rare combination of traits: courage, intelligence, empathy, and quick thinking that allowed them to succeed in situations where others might fail. Marcus had not only saved lives, but had also inspired confidence, hope, and courage in the aliens. The child looked up at Princess Ilara, smiling for the first time that day. They're safe now," the child whispered, still holding Marcus's hand. "Yes," Ilara said softly, "thanks to him." She looked at Marcus, her mind racing. She had come to observe a colony in distress, but she had witnessed something far more important. Humans were not merely survivors. They were teachers, protectors, and leaders, even without formal authority. That evening, after the danger had passed, the survivors gathered in a cleared square. Fires were lit for warmth, and tents were reinforced with beams and scraps salvaged from the storm. Marcus moved among the people, checking on each child, each elder, each injured survivor. He spoke to them gently, encouraging them, teaching them ways to stay safe if another disaster struck. Princess Ilara followed him quietly. She wanted to observe, but she also wanted to understand him, to understand how a human could have such an impact on a world so different from their own. "You teach differently," she said, as they stood near a small fire where the child was quietly eating. "You do not give commands like my people would. You guide, you show, you protect. They follow because they trust you, not because they fear you." Marcus smiled faintly. "I don't know if it's teaching. I just do what feels right. People respond when you show them calm, when you help them understand that someone cares. Fear can make people freeze, but hope makes them act." Ilara studied him, her mind racing. Humans were not merely brave. They could inspire courage and hope in others, in ways no alien strategy or royal command could. She realized, with a quiet thrill, that humans were extraordinary not only in action but in heart. The child curled up near Marcus, exhausted, but safe. Ilara knelt beside them, unsure if she should speak or simply watch. Finally, she said softly, "I have seen many warriors, many leaders, but I have never seen one like you. You do not just fight. You do not just command. You teach courage and you teach care. That is extraordinary." Marcus shook his head, still humble. "I just do what I can. That's all any of us can do." But Ilara knew it was more than that. Humans carried something deep inside them, a combination of bravery, patience, and empathy that could change worlds. She had seen it today, in the way Marcus had faced danger, saved lives, and calmed the frightened. She had seen it in the way the child now slept quietly, safe in his arms. Night settled over the colony, cool and quiet. Fires glowed softly in the squares, and the survivors began to rest, confident that the danger had passed. But Princess Ilara remained near Marcus, watching him as he quietly checked the shelters, spoke to the elders, and reassured the children. She realized something important. Humans were extraordinary, not only for what they could do, but for what they inspired in others. Marcus had not simply saved lives, he had inspired trust, courage, and hope. The child's laughter, the calm among the adults, the renewed energy of the colony, all were a result of his presence. And as she watched, Ilara felt a quiet determination form inside her. She would stay near this human, learn from him, and understand what made humans so remarkable. Perhaps one day she would bring these lessons to her own people, to help them see the power that humans carried in their hearts. For now, though, she simply watched, and in silence, she learned. The storms had passed, the predators were gone, and for the first time in many days the colony seemed alive with hope. And in the quiet of the night, the child slept peacefully, still holding Marcus's hand. Princess Ilara stood nearby, realizing that humans could change the world, not with power or weapons, but with courage, care, and heart. The sun rose slowly over the colony, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Velora had survived the storm, the predators, and the chaos of the ruined city, but danger was not gone. The ground still trembled under the planet's unstable tectonic plates. Cracks in the streets had widened overnight, and some of the temporary shelters swayed in the wind, threatening to collapse at any moment. Princess Ilara stood on a ridge, scanning the colony below. She had been observing Captain Marcus for days, learning from him, watching how he guided the survivors and witnessing how he inspired courage and hope. She had begun to feel something she did not fully understand, a mix of admiration, curiosity, and respect. Humans were extraordinary, not just strong or clever, but capable of a deep care that could change the world around them. Marcus was already moving among the survivors. He carried the child on his shoulders as he checked shelters, reinforced weak walls, and encouraged the adults to continue working despite fatigue. Every action was careful, measured, yet filled with purpose. Then the ground shook violently. A new tremor, stronger than before, split the streets with a loud crack. Dust and debris fell from partially repaired buildings. The colony erupted into chaos. Children screamed, animals ran wild, and adults froze in fear. The shelters that had been standing only moments ago now threatened to fall. The child shrieked, hiding their face in Marcus's chest. He held the child tightly, keeping them calm even as the dust rained down. "It's okay," he whispered. "We will stay safe. Just stay with me." Ilara felt a surge of urgency. She wanted to act, to help, but she hesitated. In her world, royalty often gave orders from a distance. But Marcus, he acted. He did not hesitate. He moved through danger with calm, guiding others and protecting the vulnerable. The tremors caused part of a weak building to collapse, trapping several aliens inside. Marcus did not pause. He motioned to nearby adults to hold the debris while he crawled underneath. Carefully, he pulled the trapped individuals free one by one. The child clung to his back as he worked, terrified but trusting him completely. Ilara realized then that observation was not enough. If she wanted to learn fully, she had to act alongside him. She leapt from the ridge, landing lightly in the rubble near Marcus. The survivors turned in surprise, unused to seeing a royal in danger alongside them. But Ilara moved with confidence, lifting debris, guiding frightened children, and helping Marcus direct people to safety. "Princess, you shouldn't," Marcus began, but she shook her head. "I will help," she said simply. "Show me what to do." Together they worked side by side. Marcus continued to move with calm precision, showing Ilara how to lift debris without endangering herself or the trapped aliens. She followed his guidance, gradually learning the small gestures, the careful calculations, and the quiet courage it took to act in the moment. The child's eyes were wide as they watched the princess and the human work together. For the first time, they seemed to understand fully that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Hours passed in tense effort. Dust filled the air, sweat-streaked faces and muscles ached. But Marcus and Ilara continued, moving from shelter to shelter, rescuing those in danger, calming panicked children, and reinforcing weak structures. The adults, inspired by their example, worked with renewed energy, helping each other and following the humans' instructions. At one point, a partially collapsed building threatened to fall entirely. Marcus reached the child first, holding them close, while Ilara moved behind him, bracing the remaining structure with 2 large beams. They worked together in silence, trusting each other completely. When the last support was placed, the building held. The survivors erupted in relief and gratitude. Marcus knelt, gently setting the child down. The child ran to him, hugging him tightly. "You saved everyone," they exclaimed, eyes shining. Marcus smiled, brushing dust from his uniform. "We saved each other," he said simply. "It's teamwork that matters." Ilara knelt beside them, her hands trembling slightly from exertion and adrenaline. You are remarkable," she said to Marcus. "Not just for what you do, but for how you inspire others. I have seen leaders before, but none like you. You act with courage and care at the same time. It is extraordinary." Marcus shook his head modestly. "I just do what feels right. People need someone steady in the chaos. That's all. If I can make them feel safe, then that's enough." Ilara smiled, realizing that humans' greatness lay not only in skill or strength, but in heart. Marcus had faced every danger without hesitation, protected the child without fear, and inspired an entire colony to act together. Humans, she understood now, had a rare combination of intelligence, courage, and compassion that could change worlds. As the tremors subsided, the survivors began to rebuild stronger and more organized than before. Marcus and Ilara worked together to reinforce the shelters, improve the water system, and gather food. The child helped too, carrying small supplies and learning from the human. Laughter and chatter began to replace the fear and cries that had filled the air for so long. By evening, the colony had a sense of calm it had not known for days. Marcus checked on the last group of children, making sure they were safe and comfortable. The child curled up next to him, finally smiling without fear. Ilara approached, standing quietly beside them. "You have changed this place," she said softly. "Not by strength, not by order, but by courage, by care, by action. You have shown them what humans can do, and they have followed. That is incredible." Marcus looked down at the child, who peeked up at him shyly. "It's not me alone. Everyone helped. They just needed someone to show them a way forward." Ilara nodded. "Yes, but you were the guide. You are the reason they found courage when they could have given up. You are more than I expected from any being I have observed." The child yawned, exhausted from the day's events. Marcus gently lifted them and placed them in a safe shelter with other children. Ilara watched quietly, feeling a strange mix of pride and admiration for the human. Night fell over the colony, the first peaceful night in days. Fires glowed softly and the survivors began to rest, confident that they were safe. Marcus stood outside looking over the colony while Ilara remained near him. "You have taught me something," she said finally. "I came to observe a broken world, but I have learned more than I expected. Humans are capable of courage, care, and leadership in ways my people rarely understand. And it is not just in action, it is in heart." Marcus smiled faintly, brushing dust from his uniform. "That's all we can do. Care, act, and hope. If it helps, it's worth it." Ilara felt a quiet determination grow inside her. She had come to study a colony in despair, but she had discovered a human who could inspire hope, courage, and action in ways her people could hardly imagine. She wanted to learn more, to see the full extent of humanity's power, not through weapons or strategy, but through heart, patience, and bravery. The child slept peacefully now, still holding the memory of Marcus's calm presence. Ilara watched, realizing that humans could change the world not just by acting alone, but by inspiring others to act together. And in the quiet of the night, as 2 moons rose over the horizon, she knew one thing clearly. She would follow this human, learn from him, and see how far his courage and care could reach. Because humans, she realized, were extraordinary in ways that could reshape worlds. Baelora still had dangers ahead, but with humans like Marcus among them, there was hope. A hope stronger than fear, stronger than disaster and stronger than any storm. The morning sun rose over Velora, spilling light across streets that were still scarred from storms and tremors. The colony was not yet whole, but the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been fear and despair, now there was determination. The survivors moved with purpose, rebuilding their homes, repairing shelters, and preparing for any new danger. Captain Marcus moved among them, calm and steady as always. His presence had become a symbol of hope for the colony. Children ran to him, smiling and laughing. Adults followed his guidance willingly, no longer hesitant or afraid. Even the elders who had once doubted his methods now watched in admiration as he directed operations with quiet authority. The child, once weeping constantly, now walked confidently beside Marcus. They carried small tools and helped other children learn to gather supplies and clean the streets. The laughter of the child rang through the colony, a signal that life was returning to a broken world. Princess Ilara observed from a distance at first, then approached Marcus. She had spent days watching him act, learning and participating in the rescue and rebuilding efforts. Each moment had deepened her understanding of humanity. Humans were not only capable of courage and intelligence, but also empathy, patience, and a unique ability to inspire others to act together. "Captain Marcus," she said softly, stepping beside him, "I have seen many beings in my travels, warriors, leaders, scholars, but I have never seen anyone like you. You act, you protect, you teach, and yet you never demand. You inspire without force, you bring hope." Marcus looked at her and smiled faintly. "I just do what feels right. People need someone steady. That's all. If I can help, I do." "That's what humans do." Ilara shook her head. "No, it is more than that. You have changed this colony. You have saved lives, given courage, and taught hope. That is extraordinary." Just then a group of young adults approached. They had been working on the water purification system, repairing the damaged pipes. One of them, a young alien named Kale, bowed slightly. "Princess Ilara, Captain Marcus. The water system is fully functional again. Clean water is available to everyone." Marcus nodded, glancing at the repaired system. "Good work. Everyone did well. The colony is stronger because of your efforts." Kyle smiled, a proud and relieved expression. "Yes, thanks to your guidance, Captain. You showed us how to act, how to work together. We could not have done this alone." Ilara's eyes widened. She realized the truth of what Marcus had done. It was not just that he had helped physically, but that he had inspired the aliens to find courage within themselves. He had taught them to act as one, to take responsibility, and to believe they could overcome even the greatest challenges. The child ran up to Marcus, holding a small bundle of flowers they had found. "For you," the child said shyly, placing them in Marcus's hands. "Thank you for saving us." Marcus smiled, kneeling to the child's level. "It's all right. I'm proud of you for being brave. You helped too." Ilara felt a warmth in her chest as she watched the exchange. Humans were remarkable not just for what they could do alone, but for what they could bring out in others. Marcus had not only saved lives, he had created courage, trust, and hope where there had been none. The princess stepped forward, her voice clear and full of authority. "People of Velora," she said, addressing the gathered colony, "you have faced great disaster. You have seen danger and loss, but you have also seen courage and hope. Captain Marcus is a human, and he has shown you the extraordinary power of kindness, intelligence, and bravery. His actions have saved this colony and inspired all of us to be better, stronger, and braver." A murmur of admiration and gratitude swept through the crowd. Adults nodded, children clapped their hands, and the elders smiled, tears glistening in their eyes. For the first time in weeks, the colony felt united, alive and capable. Marcus shook his head modestly. "I did not do this alone. Everyone worked together. That is what matters. The colony saved itself with a little guidance." Ilara looked at him, a smile touching her lips. "Even guidance can change worlds, Captain. You have done more than anyone could imagine. You have shown us the power of humanity." The child ran to her side, tugging at her robe. "Princess Ilara, can Marcus stay?" they asked. "Please, he saved us." Ilara laughed softly, kneeling to the child's level. "Yes," she said. "I think he will stay, at least for a while. Humans like him. They are rare. We must learn from them." Marcus looked at the princess and child, smiling quietly. "I'll stay as long as I'm needed," he said. "This colony, it has become home in a way. The sun began to set over the repaired colony, casting long golden shadows over the streets and buildings. Fires burned softly, children played freely, and the adults moved with confidence and purpose. The child sat near Marcus, holding his hand and laughing freely, a symbol of hope restored. Ilara watched the scene, feeling a deep sense of respect and admiration for the human before her. "I have traveled across many worlds," she said softly to Marcus, "and I have seen warriors, leaders, and scholars. But I have never met anyone like you. Humans, you bring courage, hope, and heart. You do not just survive, you inspire. You teach, you change the world." Marcus shook his head, a little embarrassed by the praise. "I'm just a soldier. I do what I can. That's all any of us can do," Ilara smiled. "No, it is more than that. You have saved lives, given hope, and inspired courage where there was fear. That is the essence of greatness." The child tugged at Marcus's sleeve, whispering, "Thank you for everything." Marcus knelt, hugging the child gently. "You're welcome," he said. "I'm proud of you for being brave." Ilara stood quietly, watching the bond between the human and the child. She realized that humans were extraordinary not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they carried courage and care together. They inspired others, healed the frightened, and turned despair into hope. That night, as the colony settled into a peaceful rhythm, Marcus and Ilara stood on a small ridge overlooking the settlement. Fires glowed softly, laughter echoed in the streets, and the child slept soundly in a safe shelter. "You have taught me much," Ilara said quietly. "I came to observe a colony in distress, but I have learned more about humanity than I could have imagined. Humans are extraordinary." Marcus smiled faintly, brushing dust from his uniform. "We just do what we can, but I'm glad it helped. That's what matters." Ilara nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. Humans, she realized, were capable of things beyond strength or intelligence. They could bring hope to the hopeless, courage to the fearful, and light to even the darkest places. For the first time in her life, she understood that humanity was more than a species. It was a force for hope, courage, and change. And Captain Marcus was living proof of that truth. The child woke briefly, looking at Marcus and smiling. "We're safe now," they whispered. "Yes," Marcus said, smiling back. "Thanks to all of you, and thanks to hope." Ilara watched, feeling a quiet joy. The colony had survived, but more than that, it had been transformed. Fear had been replaced by courage, despair by hope, and confusion by understanding. Humans had not just saved lives, they had taught the aliens to believe in themselves. The princess took a deep breath, looking at Marcus. "I will carry this lesson to my people," she said softly. "Humans, they are remarkable, and I will ensure that others see the power of courage, care, and hope that you have shown us." Marcus nodded, humble as ever. "All we can do is act and hope others follow. That's how change happens." The night sky darkened and the stars shone over the repaired colony. Fires burned softly. Laughter echoed, and the child slept peacefully. Marcus stood nearby, a quiet guardian of hope. Princess Ilara observed them both, filled with respect, admiration, and understanding. Velora was no longer a broken world. It was a world renewed by courage, care, and the extraordinary presence of a human who had shown what true greatness could be. And as the stars glittered overhead, one thing was clear. Humans had the power not only to survive, but to inspire, to teach, and to change the universe in ways that no one could imagine.